And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us late on a Thursday evening. Not too much going on around the world of baseball. Only 5 games tonight. We'll get into the scoreboards tonight and check in on where teams stand a week into the season. We'll also check in on where teams stand with their rosters. With all the changes we've seen over the last week or so with a bunch of different rosters. We've seen some closers going into the year already removed from their role and optioned to the minor leagues. We've seen some all-star players get out of the gates really, really slow. And hopefully we're starting to see some signs of some of those guys starting to turn it around. But with that being said, what holes have we now identified on teams that teams thought they had solved? For instance, the Texas Rangers thought they had their bullpen solved, thought they had a closer there. Where do they stand right now with their bullpen, and how's that closer role shaping up? And will they address it at the trade deadline? The Toronto Blue Jays are expected to be sellers at the deadline, even though they were all in on the 2025 season. Didn't see them being this good early in the season, but so far so good for them and their possibility of recruiting the extension anyway, or at least the possibility of an extension with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. We'll touch on a few of the extensions that were completed yesterday and what other extensions may be coming here shortly. But let's get into some of the big storylines from around the league today. First and foremost, it does look like the Tampa Bay Rays will be staying in St. Petersburg for now. It sounds like they are approving the repairs needed for the Tropicana roof after the hurricane kind of ripped it to shreds. It said the project was going to need $70 million was the initial estimate as far as how much it would cost. I did not see how much was approved today, but safe to say it's going to cost a pretty penny. They were expected to not be able to play in their home stadium all year long. I would expect that's going to be the case for at least a portion of next year as well. Not too much going on around the league, though. Jesse Chavez has decided to go to free agency after being designated for assignment twice now in the first couple of weeks of the season. All right, let's check in on the scoreboard, and then we'll get into the fun stuff here. All right, Red Sox bats finally awaken a little bit against the Baltimore Orioles. They're 8-4 winners against Baltimore there. Rafi Devers with a hit in the game. Looks like he's starting to shake things off from his struggles early in the year. Phillies continue to keep rolling there, 3-1 winners over Colorado at home. Astros shake off the rough series against the Giants and back into the win column. Twins, however, right back to where they were before, struggling offensively, unable to produce any run support for their pitching staff. They lose 5-2 to Houston. Yankees continue to hit the home run ball. They are well above any expected pace for what they could have done entering the season. Yes, there were torpedo bats and all that kind of thing, but I think we saw that was a little bit of a product of what the team that they're facing. They are still hitting the ball really, really well. I'm not saying it's all based off of Milwaukee's pitching staff, but what I am saying is that it's not entirely just due to those torpedo bats or the Yankees themselves. They've had some good and bad mixture in there, and they get the win today, 9-7 over the Diamondbacks. Merrill Kelly was not very good today. Ended up giving up 3 home runs in 3 2/3 innings, giving up all 9 runs to the Yankees in those 3 2/3. Good job by the Diamondbacks bullpen, kind of saving the game, keeping them in it, but just not enough. They're in too big of a hole. Reds, for the first time in franchise history, have been shut out and lose 1-0 for the 3rd consecutive game. Safe to say their offense is in shambles right now. Good news for them, though, is at least their pitching staff is holding the opposing team to only 1 run. Now, if only they could somehow scratch a run across the plate. We'll have to see if they go for 4 tomorrow. But that's kind of your games from today anyway. The only things I've taken away from this: 1, the Red Sox shaking off the rust a little bit. Same thing with the Houston Astros. Let's head over to the standings and see where they stand at the end of the day. Blue Jays still on top, 5-2 record. Yankees tied with the Rays anyway at 4-2. Red Sox bringing up the rear at 3-4. Still a bunch of 2-win teams in the AL Central. Nothing to write home about right now. The Rangers had the day off today. 5-2 is their record. Astros elevate to 3rd in the division now, or at least a tie for it at 3-4. Phillies extend their lead in the NL East. 5-1 is their record so far. Their pitching has been very, very good so far. Granted, they've had the Rockies to face, which is not a great offensive team, but good on them for taking care of business when they have to there. Braves, they will play tomorrow against the Miami Marlins. We'll have to see if their offense comes to town a little bit here. They are 0-7. They are the last beaten team so far, the last winless team. We'll see if they can shake it off tomorrow. NL Central, Cardinals had the day off. They are still in the lead in the division anyway. 4-2 Cubs on their heels at 5-4. And then, of course, your 2 undefeated teams, the Dodgers and the Padres, 8-0 and 7-0. Just a really tough division right now. All 4 of the top 4 teams there are legitimate playoff contenders at this point. I think the Diamondbacks are a really strong team. Giants, I think, have had they got the right team at the right time. I'll put it that way. Astros are struggling offensively. Do I think they're a 5-1 team? No, I think they're more of a 81-81 type of team by the end of the year. But I think that'll come back to the pack a little bit. But a good first week for the San Francisco Giants, and Rockies, of course, bringing up the rear there. Ocean View, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us. My first trade: Kyle Gibson to the Rangers. Astros get Max Scherzer. We'll have to see about that one. The Rangers, I do think, have some guys that are coming back as far as injury that will help them out in the rotation. I still think it's a little early as far as necessitating a move for a starting pitcher, but you can guarantee that if they are in it, Chris Young will be adding some pitching of some kind, probably a starter, probably a reliever as well. You can never have too much pitching. So let's go ahead and head over to our baseballtradevalues.com site here. And let's go ahead and do some trades here. First one I want to start with, let me go over the standings again. I want to look at some of these teams that are struggling. So, for instance, teams that haven't gotten out of the gates well. The Seattle Mariners offense needs a little bit of a jolt. The Houston Astros offense needs a little bit of a jolt. Braves just need too much. I'm not sure if they get the jolt that it'd be enough. As far as the Chicago Cubs, I think they absolutely have defined their need right now, and that is pitching, both in the rotation and in the bullpen. We'll get into one of those trades as well. Reds, they're clearly needing some offense right now early in the season. I do think they have the right weapons there for their offense to get better. The question is, will this pitching hold up as well as it's been the last week or so? Dodgers look like an all-world team. They don't really need anything. Luxury item would be Sandy Alcantara. Diamondbacks look really good. I don't see a really big need for them right now either. Then, of course, the big rumor out there is the Sandy Alcantara rumors to the New York Mets. The Marlins currently are telling teams we are not open for business on Sandy Alcantara. Well, that makes sense because obviously they want to continue to show that he's healthy, back to being the dominant ace that he was before the injury. That's the reason why I think they're telling teams that and of course to drive up the price here. We really know that there's only going to be a few teams that are going to have the pieces needed that the Marlins are willing to acquire. We're talking 20 and under, position players with high upside, blue chip type of pieces. They don't want pitchers back. They don't want guys back that are close to making the major leagues or major league players back. They want position players back in return, and all of them to be young. That way, their next big contention window all hits at the exact same time with that young talent. Holly, welcome in. Astros also get Jesus Sanchez, left-hand platoon outfielder. Mariners also get Luis Arraez. Well, let's go ahead and get into some of this. Welcome in, Mark. Texas might have 3 number 1 starters. Leiter's been very good. Blister issue, of course, took him out of the game at the end yesterday anyway. But he looks very good. I'm curious to see how Molly responds to a rough first outing. I want to see him be able to locate a little bit better, avoid the walk. If he's able to do that, I think he could probably get you through 4, maybe 5 innings here in his second start of the year. If you're expecting 6 or 7 from Tyler Molly, I think you're kidding yourself. I think getting a 4 or 5 good innings out of him would be a good second start for him, at least a progress for him. Rafe, week into that Rangers season, what you think? I really like where they're at. Their offense, though, is a little bit worrisome. I do think we're seeing some teams shake off the rust here today. Red Sox, Astros come to mind here. I wonder if the Rangers are in that same boat here as they face a tough test in a pitching staff of the Tampa Bay Rays. Lighter about him, make me buy his jersey? I would if I were you. If I had the money, I certainly would. I got too much to worry about on my own, unfortunately, though. So my days of buying jerseys are long gone, I think, at this point. All right. Let's go ahead and get to some trades here. We'll start with the fun one. We'll do, let's see here. Let's do the Chicago Cubs. They absolutely need some bullpen help, so where could they go to get it? Well, we already know the Angels signed Kenley Jansen for him to be able to be traded. So let's go to the majors. We want relief pitchers here. Burks had a nice start to his season as well. Kenley Jansen's the piece, though. That would be the one that I think they're going to try to go after. They're also going to look towards some other setup type of pitchers as well. But Kenley Jansen here, I think, would be a good fit for them. Let's see, where else could they go for some middle relief here? The Padres are going to be open for business, and they need to save some money here. I think Robert Suarez would be the piece that could go to the Cubs, and he's under control for 2 more years after this season. As far as what would it take, I think the Padres included, I don't know, $5 million, somewhere in there to be spread out over a couple of years. That could be enough to work out for the Padres and the Cubs and be able to get a nice return coming back to San Diego. As far as what they could get in return, I think they're looking for major league talent coming back, or at least a piece that they could utilize on the MLB side of things. It ain't going to be a whole lot. We're talking, low-value pieces here. Jack Neely could be one such piece. Merriweather, Nate Pearson. Nobody really moves the needle there. Let's go to all. Let's say they go with Nazir Mule to the Padres. And let's go with another really low-value piece in here. 20-year-old shortstop Christian Hernandez. 1.6 gets them a nice closer option if Presley starts to falter, and gives them a setup option if Presley's locked in that 9th inning role. Let's validate the trade, post it to the trade board. And there's one way for the Cubs to address their needs in that bullpen. Now remember, the Padres do this because they're trying to trim a little bit of cash here. Well, wait, Michael, if they're trying to trim cash, why are you including $5 million? Well, roughly they save about $6 million this year if you space out that money. Say $2 million this year, $2 million next, and $1 million the next year. You're still saving between $4 and $5 million off the numbers this year. That's a good thing for them. They have a ready-made closer already in house in Jason Adam to take over the workload there if necessary. Let's see here. Aiden, welcome back. I heard people talking about Royce Lewis trade for the Yankees. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of trade talk around the Minnesota Twins. As far as Royce Lewis is concerned, though, health is the biggest question mark. I don't think teams are going to be willing to pay the price necessary to be able to pry him away from the Minnesota Twins. I'm sure he'd be a great fit with the Yankees. Injuries, of course, being a big question mark there. And are you willing to pay premium prices anyway to be able to bring him in when you're not sure about his availability? So while I think the Twins have a really high estimation on his value, I think the Yankees are going to have kind of a suppressed value for him because of that availability, and I think it's going to be very difficult to execute a trade, including Royce Lewis. Yankees bats are on crack. I would say the Yankees bats are certainly doing very well. They've gotten some really nice help from opposing pitching staffs, though. The torpedo bats are a little bit of a story here, but it's also okay to say that the Yankees are hitting well. The players themselves are doing very great things. Aaron Judge, I think I saw a number today anyway, that says he is one behind Babe Ruth for the most home runs through 1,000 games in Yankees history. Babe Ruth, I think they said the number was, 321, and Aaron Judge just hit 320 today. So I'll have to see if he can break Babe Ruth's record with the New York Yankees. Heel, A's trade Shea Langeliers to the Guardians for Bo Naylor and maybe 2 prospects. Yee, I would not do that if I'm the Guardians. I like Bo Naylor. I think he's going to be a good piece for them. And to add 2 prospects to it in exchange for a piece that's struggled initially in his getting his feet wet at the major league level, but starting to come into his own, I would rather go with Naylor and the 2 prospects if I'm the Guardians rather than shell it out for Shea Langeliers. Rafe, does Jackson stay our closer, or do you see us making a move for a closer at the deadline? I will say that the reason why the Rangers did not add another closer already is to kind of keep their powder dry, see who's performing well at the deadline, and then make an addition to the bullpen, or make an addition to the starting rotation if necessary. I think they wanted to leave themselves a little bit of flexibility in case the need arose, and right now I'm kind of happy with the way the bullpen's shaken out for Texas. Do I think Luke Jackson was my preferred guy going into the season? No. But has he done a nice job outside of the opener? Yes, he has. And I think the Rangers gotten pretty good production out of that bullpen so far, outside of that one start by Kumar Rocker where Garabito was lit up essentially as kind of the mop-up duty guy. But again, for a mop-up duty guy, that's kind of his role. Just get outs and just take the beating that day and just move on, flip the day over to the next one. But I would say Jackson would probably stay the closer there. Let's go ahead and do another trade here. So let's do something a little bit more fun. Let's see here. Astros, they're looking for some offense in the outfield. So teams that could find themselves in a surprise selling situation would be a team like the Atlanta Braves. If they continue to really struggle here, let's go to the major side of things and to the outfield. Brian De La Cruz could be a nice piece that could be traded on a low-cost salary type of basis to the Houston Astros. Doesn't really cost them pretty much anything there. Or Jared Kelenic. Marcelo Zuna could be a nice bat for them, but again, another DH type player for them to bring in. Alex Verdugo. I think he might be the one I'd prefer to bring in. Let's say they bring in both. Verdugo and De La Cruz. Astros, let's say they go really cheap on this type of a deal. I mean, really cheap here. We're talking Blair Henley to the Braves. Somebody who's not got a whole lot left in the tank anyway. Let's go another piece here. Let's go an 18-year-old outfielder just for the Braves to get something out of it. This would be a trade that would happen at the trade deadline if the Braves continue to falter, and this would be getting the Houston Astros a couple of bats for their outfield and just see what they have to work with at that point. Heel, Nolan Arenado to the Tigers for Parker Meadows and cash. Remember Arenado's no trade list anyway. I would say that he's probably not going to end up in Detroit. Out of all teams, look how poor, just how poor that division is overall. 2-4 is winning the division right now, and I don't think Arenado is going to be deciding to waive his no trade to go to Detroit, no matter how good Tarek Skubal and a few of their pitchers are. But speaking of Nolan Arenado, where could we see him go? Now that we're a week into the season, we can kind of see where some holes are developing on teams. Angels are not going to be buyers here at this year's deadline, even though they got off to a decent start here to begin the season. Astros are pretty much locked up where Arenado could play. No for the A's, Blue Jays. If they continue to win, they could be a nice fit here for a Nolan Arenado piece. So let's go ahead and see what that would have to look like. So the Blue Jays bring in Nolan Arenado. Remember, the Cardinals were willing to eat roughly $15 million of this deal. All right, so now you have only a negative 2.3 valuation here. Let's go ahead and take this out and move it to 20. We could include Ryan Helsley as far as a closer here to the Blue Jays, but remember, teams don't like to add assets together in a trade. They don't like to combine pieces. Very rarely do they do so. Remember the trade for Cliff Lee years and years and years ago. Remember the trade for Cole Hamels years and years and years ago. The Rangers were giving up so many pieces in both of those trades that they demanded that they at least get a veteran relief pitcher back in both of those deals. They got Mark Lowe in the deal for Cliff Lee. They got Jake Diekman along with Cole Hamels in the deal with Philadelphia. Both of those options ended up serving them pretty well in their bullpen, but they needed the depth there, and so that's why they were able to get small pieces attached. But you do not see two premium assets attached to each other very much at all when it comes to trades. So let's kind of keep that in mind here. But say we include the $20 million, what would the Blue Jays have to give up for around that $2 million price point there? All right, let's go to page 2. See, they could go with a 20-year-old shortstop. They could go a little bit cheaper here. Go with an 18-year-old starting pitcher. Let's say they go that direction because they do need some starting pitching. Let's go on to page 3. Go a little bit cheaper here. A young catching piece. That could be a nice piece for them. And there you are. 2.4, 2.7. Say you throw in one more piece just for good measure. Easton Lucas to kind of give him a bullpen arm back. Say they go with an aging starting pitching piece that could at least eat some innings if necessary. Not a real value piece here. Okay. Validate it, post it, and there Nolan Arenado would have to waive his no trade, of course, to go to Toronto. But it would be an interesting thought if they're still in it at the trade deadline, if they're still winning the AL East. I could see him going to a city like Toronto if Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has decided to waive or decides to change his mind anyway as far as talks for an extension and decides to get that extension done. If that happens, I think Nolan might be amenable to a deal like that. Let's see here. Rafe, is there a world where Kumar Rocker becomes trade bait? No. I was reading up a little bit after our live last night anyway, about Jared Sandler and how he got into a little bit of a radio beef with some of the local, disc jockey, soundbite guys from the DFW area. And basically he was adamant that Jack Leiter, while he's had his struggles at the major league level, was very, very young, and there was no reason to try to trade him. The radio guys are basically saying, hey man, he's struggled, he's had his chance, time to move on and try to capitalize on what's left of his value. You can kind of see the wisdom now of holding on to a Jack Leiter and allowing him to continue to grow and develop, especially with how much you had invested in him. Same thing goes for Kumar Rocker here. He was great last year, and after one bad start, we might start dangling the idea of him being trade bait. I don't see that happening at all. I think they view him as a future ace for their rotation, and I think they will treat him as such. All right, let's go ahead and do a couple more trades before we head out for the day. Let's go ahead and do. Let's do one for the Rangers. Say they get to the deadline and their offense is still having some issues there. Where could they go to upgrade their offense? Well, again, let's look at our standings here. Where are we gonna find some offense from some of these struggling teams? Pirates, they don't have much offense, let alone are they going to trade it. Reds could be a team that you might turn to. Nationals, maybe they revisit the idea of Nathaniel Lowe. He's having a nice start to his season, 2 home runs already, which is more than they've gotten from Jake Berger. They could go to the Cardinals and try to add some more talent there. Brewers, they get the win today anyway, but they're 3-4. I do expect them to try to win the division. I don't think they'll be selling assets. Mariners don't have assets to trade as far as offense is concerned. Twins could be one spot that we go to. Rays could be another one for a bat or two. But right now, their offense needs a little bit of work. They need to hit the cage a little bit. I'm not satisfied with Simeon being our leadoff hitter if you're a Texas Rangers fan. So where could you go to get some support anyway? Pilar's had a nice start to the season. Will he stay on the active roster all season? Remains to be seen. Where do we go for offense? Padres, if they're trying to offload some salary, they need to, save a little bit of money here. Luis Arraez would be the piece that would be a little bit of a help for the Rangers, but he's gotten off to a terrible start to the season. His value, I'd imagine, is a little bit lower right now after the start he's gotten off to. But let's say they decide to offload him and figure out things from there. The one piece I could see the Rangers including in a deal like this, because he doesn't fit on this roster right now, is Ezekiel Duran. I think there's a real possibility Ezekiel Duran is off of this roster here in the next couple of weeks. Let's validate the trade and post it. Would I do this trade if I'm either side? No. Rangers would need a little bit of salary relief, and no for the Padres because I would want more in return than just Ezekiel Duran. So there would need to be some tinkering on both sides to get this deal done. All right, let's go ahead and do the last one that we'll do for tonight anyway. And that's the New York Mets, and see if they're an actual fit for Sandy Alcantara from the Marlins. All right, Sandy's value right now already up to 53 after a solid start to his season. But remember, we're looking for 20 and under, infield or outfield pieces that could possibly be dealt in a deal here. They're going to want some premium assets. So Jesus Baez, let's see here. You're probably first on the block here. Jeremy Rodriguez, second to go. Let's see if there's anybody else. Jet Williams could be another piece here. That gets you to 53 to the Mets, 51 and change. So if they included just a smaller piece, say a Trey Snyder, validate it and post it. Not too bad. Would I do this if I'm the Mets? I'd probably hold on to Jet Williams and see if I could include a couple of lower level pieces in return rather than including him. But this is a type of trade that you get your blue chip piece in Jet Williams, a couple of really strong prospects in Baez and Rodriguez, and then a filler there in Trey Snyder. Overall, I'd give this trade I'd probably give it a B for both sides. If you take out Jet Williams, give a couple of smaller level pieces, then I think it'd be a little bit better for the Mets. But I think the Marlins would still come out looking good for what they ultimately were looking for. Rafe, I know pitchers can pitch into their 40s, but the fact that he's 25, if he doesn't have a good season, it's scary to think about. Honestly, obviously I think he's capable of being a quality pitcher, but it's Texas. True, Texas does have a terrible track record of developing starting pitching. Derek Holland is one of their few success stories in recent memory. And I think both of these guys are going to have significantly better careers than that of Derek Holland. And he had a pretty solid career with the Texas Rangers. So I'll just say be patient with some of these young players. Just take your time with them. Don't be so quick to make a judgment here. If you think you're a World Series team and you're trading away Kumar Rocker to bring in Sandy Alcantara, that might be a different conversation to at least talk about. Do I think I'd still do the trade? Probably not. Not saying that Rocker is valuable as Sandy Alcantara, but I'm just saying that while Kumar Rocker has his promise, when you're trying to compete for a World Series, having a MLB level competitor that's able to put up zeros the way he is versus a rookie who's still trying to get used to the MLB side of things would be obviously the way they would prefer to go for a one season outlook at things. But in the grand scheme of things, you don't want to give up your premium assets like a Jet Williams for a Sandy Alcantara in this type of a deal, or in a Kumar Rocker deal, for instance. If you did something like that, you don't want to mortgage your future just to bring a Sandy Alcantara, who does have his injury red flags as well. Rafe, poor Evan Carter, man. I know he will turn it around, but I miss him. Well, Evan Carter just needs to develop. He's really missed a lot of time due to injury in recent memory and needs to get back and build some confidence there. I just kind of talked about Ezekiel Duran. I know a lot of Rangers fans are in our chat. Just final thought on him. I still believe in the player. I still think the talent is there. I think the home runs are still in that bat. I still think he's a good defensive player, even though he had a little bit of a couple of errors early in the season so far with the throwing errors over to first base. Can happen with an inexperienced first baseman in Jake Berger, who's had a really good trial by fire start to the season anyway for him. But he's going to have to improve a little bit as well. But for Ezekiel Duran, I think the biggest issue for him right now is confidence. It just looks between his ears right now. And if he's able to solve those issues, he could be the Zeke Duran we saw in 23. But right now, he just does not look confident in any way. And I think it's really affecting his play on the field. Rafe also admitted Heim looking clean, hitting the ball hard. Yes, the thing I was looking for on Heim was, is he grounding the ball? Is he hitting a bunch of ground balls through the middle to get those base hits? Or is he lifting the ball in the air? And so far, the strategy is working. He's the type of player that needs that ball in the air, some travel, some power. And when he's hitting the ball into the dirt, he's not nearly as successful. He doesn't have the speed to beat out those ground balls. But so far, so good for Jonah Heim as he looks to get back to being one of the best catchers in the American League. All right, appreciate you guys joining us. We'll be live again tomorrow night. Be sure to join us then. Hit that thumbs up at the bottom of the video. It really does help us out a lot. I'll probably do a little bit more of some trade talk anyway, and we'll discuss some of the weekend headlines as we gear up for a busy baseball weekend. But be sure to hit that thumbs up. Hearts in the chat means a lot to us. If you wouldn't mind hitting that thumbs up, subscribing here at the Upside, and follow us over on X at Upside Ascend and on Facebook at Upside Sports Network. All right, y'all have a great evening. Stay safe out there, everybody. We'll see you guys again tomorrow night.